This episode of the Pumps and Systems podcast is brought to you by Industrial Flow Solutions, changing the world one wet well at a time. So some people were a little bit resistant to it at first, it sounds like?
The entire wastewater industry, to be honest. It's just a new technology, a new idea, I guess, even more so. Everything's based on wet wells and grinder pumps, and this was a different breed.
Hello and welcome to the Pumps and Systems podcast. I'm your host, Tom Baer, a managing editor at Pumps and Systems magazine. Today, we're going to be speaking with Jay Irwin, Chief Wastewater Operator in the village of Sherman, New York, and Brad Hitselberger, Business Development Manager at Industrial Flow Solutions. They're going to be telling us all about what happened when the village of Sherman, plagued by sewer overflow, clogging, and maintenance and safety concerns, decided to switch over to a direct inline pumping system. It's been almost 6 years since Sherman made the switch, so let's find out how that's been going for them. Okay, so first of all, welcome to the Pumps and Systems podcast. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to us. So why don't you start by just kind of introducing yourselves and telling us who are you and what are you going to talk to us about today? Any information you think would be useful for our viewers and listeners?
I'll go first, Jay. I'm Brad Hitselberger. I'm located in Charlotte, North Carolina. I grew up here in Charlotte, fortunately, and everyone's moving here now these days, but it's a good area to be. I've been in the water industry here for about 6 years. With this role, with Industrial Flow Solutions, I kind of cover the whole country now. So I get to see a broad experience of, different people's problems across the United States in the water industry. And I do our business development on our municipal products. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, my name is Jay Irwin, and I'm with the Village of Sherman Wastewater Department. I've been here going on 16 years now. I'm from Sherman. I grew up here, been here for 40 plus years. So I've been in wastewater since 2007. I also operate the water system here, and we help out with the streets department. Also, right now we're a 3-man crew between 3 departments, so it's always busy.
Sounds like that would be a lot of work for.
Yeah.
So then today we are here to talk about the village of Sherman and what's been going on there in the last 5 years or so, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we'll start out talking to you, Jay. So why don't you tell us a little bit of background? So what were some of the challenges that you were facing with the old wet well setup prior to the change happening?
So the old system was a flooded suction system. So it had a lift station and then it had the wet well. So we were having a lot of issues with plugging of the pumps. The wet well would allow a fog mass to grow in that wet well, and which would eventually lead to mop rags, which would get pulled into the system, into the pumps, and which would severely plug those pumps. So we were dealing with that on a regular basis. On top of raking the bar screen weekly, pulling out anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 buckets of material out of the bar screen and having to hoist it up out of the 15-foot wet well. That was, confined space constantly. That would produce little noxious gases in that system. So we were always doing the air monitoring and that whole rigmarole with that. So it was, sorry, my heater just turned on. We're in New York. It's 40 degrees out today. So
I'm in Chicago, so I hear you.
You got it. All right. So, that, and as time progressed, it would just become more and more of an issue. So we actually started having back trucks come in, I think mainly quarterly, but as needed for sure also, which, added another layer of cost on the maintenance for us.
Okay, so it was expensive and difficult and time consuming and not maybe the safest thing, it sounds like.
Right, especially for a small department like we are, the cost, those heavy costs are more problematic for us, plus the manpower. We've never had a lot of manpower here, so that was the other issue. We always had to pull from a different department to help out.
Right. Okay. So then clearly there came a point where you're like, this is not working. We need to do something different. So how did you find the solution? What was the light bulb moment, or how did that
It was a pretty simple solution, really. I saw the system in a magazine in an article, and I read it. It caught my eye pretty fast. I made some phone calls, talked to the mayor at the time, and we just really, I laid out my points as far as why it would help us out financially, manpower wise. The financial was obviously the big end of it, but for my end, the safety, the constantly going down a wet well. Since that, I've been down there 2-3 times at the most. So went through our normal steps through the board and all that stuff. Made the contact with then Side Industry. They spoke with the guy that actually invented the system, and it was a real fast process, a real easy process, and we committed to it and went through a lot of tape to get to it, but a lot of people not trusting the idea. We pushed through it, and now here we are. Almost 6 years now. Really, February, January, it's going to be 6 years. So it's been great.
That's great. Yeah. So some people were a little bit resistant to it at first, it sounds like.
The entire wastewater industry, to be honest. It's just a new technology, a new idea, I guess, even more so. Everything's based on wet wells and grinder pumps, and this was a different breed.
But you were able to convince people, and then everything was smooth sailing. So that maybe
giving my side of it and what I thought and how I felt about it. And being an operator is a little different than being on the DEC level. I did have a lot of talks with them, and we had to come up with some backup plans and some contingencies in case this did not work right. So we did all that. Everybody was happy. Still not completely convinced, but they are now.
Well, that's good. Okay. So then tell us a little bit about how this technology works.
Yeah, I can hop in here.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, it's Jay's was like a really interesting one because it was the first municipal application like in the United States. There was a couple others sold before his installation. So there was a few in the States, but then overseas, there's well over 2,000 of them. So the guy that's invented it has really pushed this technology overseas and had great success with it. But what it really does and how it works is it mounts right up to where your sewage or your stormwater is coming in. And I believe, Jay, yours is you don't have a combined sewer system. It's just
sanitary.
Just a sanitary sewer system.
Yep.
So it can work on a combined sewer system where you have stormwater and sanitary sewer coming down, or it could just work in Jay's case, like just with the sanitary sewer system. So it's fed right by the gravity network coming in where the pipe is, and it mounts right up to it. And by doing that, that's like Jay's case, it makes it a lot safer because you don't have the dangerous gases and anything. You're not exposed to that, the people working in and around the wastewater. And instead of floats, we have a level transducer that can read like the water pressure. So it's a flow pacing device. When sewage comes in, sewage comes out, and if sewage isn't coming in, it'll be sitting idle, not consuming energy. So that's really the brains of the thing is the transducer, and it has some special features, which it actually has a dip cut impeller, which is like a vortex, and a shredder impeller in one. So it's able to identify clogs and things. I think in Jay's case, they were having clogs, and now I don't know how many clogs you've had or not had since then.
Not had any since then.
So that's kind of how it works. The big overview of it is it's going to mount right up to where sewage is coming in, and then it's going to be able to react. And there's no other technology that's able to react and shred up the rags at the same time and clear it through. And that makes it so there is no maintenance on this type of system.
And that's got to be invaluable, that lack of needing the maintenance. And let's talk about the results over the last 5 years. So you said already that Jay, you hadn't encountered any clogs since installing it. So tell us about like how it's been over this time and what results you've seen.
Well, I'd like to bring up just the fact that the installation of it also, we did that in-house as well. So we had a couple of local departments that had, a winch and crane and stuff to help us out. We did have a couple reps from our local rep, Kessler Associates, that sent a couple guys just for backup. All in all, I think it was 11 and a half hours for installation. So we did it. It's something that you could do in-house. It's it's a simple system. So since then, I mean, other than a bearing on one of the motors, that's the only thing we've done in the last 6 years. And as far as I'm concerned, a bearing is going to be, I mean, motors are motors. No matter what motor you have, you're going to have to change a bearing sometime in the lifespan of it, more than once. So that's typical for me. Other than that, we had one out, and the impeller, the dip cut impeller, looked like it was brand new still. It was just in such good shape, which is not something you see in a typical sewage pump. I mean, you see the wear and tear on those also, and that's the biggest problem with the clogs, is that they start to wear down, allowing stuff to get wrapped up in there and then causing those issues. With this, you don't see that.
Yeah, this is actually the impeller, if anyone has their video on when they're watching this. But yeah, this is the impeller we're referring to, and I think actually, like Jay was saying, I think you said you pulled it the other day, and it looked just like this. So you can see it has really sharp edges on it. When it goes into reverse, it has hinges that will slap down, go into reverse, and that's what will expose those knives. So that's what's really cool about the technology, about eliminating all the ragging issues and issues that we typically see that wet wells end up causing, essentially. And I think, I mean, talking about the savings, though, I know the case study we did and we presented at WebTech. I think it was what was the number? I think it was like $8,000.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, which is big for a small department like this. I mean, every penny counts for us for sure. I mean, we're not a multi-million gallon per day plant by any means. So that, I mean, every penny definitely counts for us.
I think we did a WebTech presentation, and it's funny, I didn't learn this till after, but Jay said that I actually saved him, I guess, millions. If you want to talk about that, Jay.
We've gone through a $7 million upgrade to our plant. So, essentially a brand new plant. And we had to design the headworks building. We were able to design it downstream of the pump because we knew the pump could handle whatever's coming into our system. So instead of building it down in a 3-story building below grade, we were able to put it up on top of the hill and just do a simple, a building, a concrete slab building, which saved a lot of money on construction and engineering because of that pump. I thought about that after the fact. So Brad was upset with me for a little bit there, but
yeah. I didn't even know that. I was like, wow, that's kind of the beauty of the system. Like, yeah, I mean, you're going to see immediate returns on maintenance and stuff, but then there's other things down the line. You might not even know that, 5 years later, they're saving millions of dollars because of this technology, which is pretty neat.
This episode of the Pumps and Systems podcast is brought to you by Industrial Flow Solutions. Industrial Flow Solutions is changing the world one wet well at a time. Headquartered in New Haven, Connecticut, USA, Industrial Flow Solutions specializes in the design, manufacturing, sales, and service of wastewater pumps and controls, including Overwatch direct inline pump systems, BJM pumps, Drano pump, Stancor, oil minder, and deragger products ideal for municipal, industrial, commercial, and residential applications. For more information, visit www.flowsolutions.com. You were saying before that it seems like a lot of people in the industry are a little wary of this new technology or something like that. So what do you think will bring them the rest of the way, or how can we convince them that maybe this might be the way to go?
Same thing we're doing now. I mean, really, he mentioned the WebTech presentation. We had a couple people there actually say it was too good to be true. And even after seeing the 5-year case study on this, they were still on that fence. We talked to a lot of guys during that conference. I did, I know, and I know Brad did too, that that fence is still there. So I think this continuing what they're doing, what IFS is doing, what Brad's been doing, I think I think it's good, not just for IFS by all means, but for the wastewater industry as a whole too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, just to touch on that, I mean, like it's technology that's just like, it takes time, in certain regions, there has to be someone that has a problem that like Jay has, that is willing to implement this technology. And then, once someone implements it, they tell their neighbor. It's kind of word of mouth. Hey, this thing works. 5 years later, you tell all the communities, this is saving me a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's helping out the community. And that's kind of how it spreads, word of mouth. So, where it's been implemented in the United States is on the East Coast, and it's migrated to the West Coast, and we're getting installations all throughout the country, but it takes time because people want to see it, and they want to see people like Jay, who's had it for like 5 years now. So the thing is, it has been around for 20 plus years. So, and there's not much, I mean, wastewater is wastewater in Europe, just like it is in the US. They're doing the same thing like us. So it's not any different, but it's just getting people to change their mentality, and it's just getting it in front of them and showing them the benefits, like Jay's case study here.
All right. So then, as you said, it has been around for quite some time, despite feeling like a new technology to folks in the US. So, Brad, can you tell us anything about like how that technology was developed or anything about its history?
I think it was originally built maybe as a booster. There was a backstory behind it, and I've heard it once or twice. And so but the gentleman who built it was from France, and really smart gentleman who he's designed other pump systems and stuff. And I think they had it as a booster, and then they realized they could just put this up to the gravity invert and then just eliminate all the smell issues. So, that's they saw the immediate benefits of it, the safety, odor, maintenance, and then the footprint excavation advantages that this thing has. And so that's kind of how it got built. But it didn't get introduced into the United States, I think 2017, and then Jay's was in January of 2018. So it just took a while for it to come over here. So that's kind of the background of the story. The company I work for purchased the technology and stuff, and we manufacture it now in Connecticut. So it's all made in Connecticut in the United States, which is great. So that's kind of the background of the whole story. There is a better story. I just don't know the full story, so I didn't really say it.
Don't know the whole legend, but that's
yeah. I got to get that down for the next podcast for sure.
All right. Well, Jay, so what words of wisdom would you have for folks who are considering this technology, but maybe do think like, oh, it's too good to be true or something like that?
Being an operator, I know there's always that operator engineer stigma, but like as an operator, like I like to test those boundaries a little bit. And when you see something, and I mean, you got to do your due diligence, which I'm 100% in favor of. I mean, do your background, you check everything out, you know what you're doing, so you know how things do operate. So I mean, I'm always for new technologies and something that's going to make your life and work better, easier, work smarter, not harder thing. I mean, that's huge. So anything like this, because I didn't jump into it and just do it, by any means. I did my due diligence on this whole thing, and it made sense to me. Like I said, I had to go through a lot of red tape for it, but it made sense, and I knew it was going to work. So when I had that feeling, I had to keep going for it. I don't even know how to put it into words, to be honest with you. It made sense, and I knew it was going to help us out in the long haul with manpower issues all the time. And nowadays it's even harder to find workers, unfortunately. So this has taken it off my plate where I can just trust that system's working out there, and I can focus on other things that I need to focus on.
Do you have any other case studies similar to the Sherman situation, or any other stories you want to share with us about instances where this technology has been used and I assume had a good result?
Yeah. I mean, almost every application we have is out there, and we have about 160 now in the United States and in Canada. It either solves like one of four issues, whether it be an odor issue with a wet well right outside of a neighborhood, and it's becoming septic and anaerobic conditions of it become really nasty, or it's solving maintenance issues like Jay's, or it's even a new pump station where you have to dig down deep in the ground, and you might have dewatering issues where it costs a lot of money on the construction side for those things, and then safety issues too. So that's basically all four of those. It hits one of those hits everybody essentially, and that's what this thing's about. I mean, we have a lot of good case studies. I think I was out one that we sold, and this isn't a municipal one, but it's actually seeing wastewater at a facility, an olive oil plant, and they were getting the pits off the olives coming down their line and going to their pump, and it started clogging up their pump, and they would constantly have to go out there, take the pumps out, unclog it, put it back in, and the next day they have to do it again. So they just had a maintenance crew that was constantly doing that. So little things like that. I mean, anything can clog up pumps. I mean, these days, whether it be pits off of olive, flushable wipes, it's very hard to control what people are flushing down the toilet and get down the drain in the sewage line. So that's a good example that it doesn't always have to be municipal, but we've sold them in industrial plants, commercially, prisons, hospitals, where they're flushing all types of things down the toilet. So it basically anywhere and everywhere that's seeing maintenance, odor, safety, or footprint issues is where we've sold a lot of these things.
All right. So before we finish up, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners / viewers, or any other information you feel like they must have before this podcast concludes?
You got anything, Jay?
I just, I like the system. It's been a good system for us. I mean, so that's important to me. That's the most important thing, is it's just been, and customer service for these guys too. I mean, they're right there. It's local in the United States, local. Parts are easy, accessible. I mean, it's just those things. Those are things that I've enjoyed with this whole system too. It's been a lot, but it's been a great experience all in all.
Yeah, and I would say, I think one of the really good questions we got at the technical presentation on his case study we did at WEFTech was, was this a critical network station basically, and it is Jay's only pump station, so it is. It's his influent pump station. So this has been implemented on a wide variety of different applications. Influent pump stations inside the fence. Off of secondary clarifiers and scum pits. It's been, like I said, outside the fence, obviously at pump stations, a lot of different applications. And it's been, I guess, tried and tested now for 20 years. So there's people that are hesitant to change the whole way of doing things. But, if you have an open mind and you can embrace technology and the changes, then, it could really impact your community and free up time, resources, and money. And that's what this technology aims to do.
And it has done.
Yeah. If anybody does want any more information, they could reach out to me on LinkedIn or, shoot me an email, and, we can talk about it and teach you more about it, because if there is concerns, we've seen engineers design different ways, address different considerations and concerns with the technology to help address those too. So I'm happy to share those with any potential people that are looking to implement this.
I'm also on the operator, and if they have any questions for operator levels, I'm more than happy to take phone calls also.
That's great. All right, good deal. No, before we sign off, I did want. So you guys, how did you find WEFTech? Because I was there for like one day, and it was my first trade show in the wastewater industry. So it was a very interesting experience. So, are you guys veterans to the WEFTech experience, or how was it for you guys?
That was my second. I know Jay's been there.
I think that's my third one. Yeah, I do a lot of local rural water ones here in New York every year. But yeah, there is a lot of people, a lot of information, a lot of everything that goes at the WEFTech.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's so much stuff on display, new technology, new things that people are coming out with, and things to help out. But it can be overwhelming. I mean, it's so much. The local ones are awesome. Like Jay said, the rural water ones and the local state chapter ones, the WEA shows. That's more. You see like a lot more operators and people who are doing the work at those things.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So were you walking around? Or did you guys have a booth?
Yeah, we had a booth. Did a little bit of walking around as well. So
yeah,
but very, very, very large. So
Brad and I walked around the one day, and I don't think we even saw everything.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to see everything in one day.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's wild. I don't know. You got to bring walking shoes if you're walking the show for sure.
100%. Yeah. All right. Well, then all that's left for me to do is to say thank you so much for appearing on the Pumps and Systems podcast and sharing all your expertise with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. The end. Yay. Good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Huge thanks to Jay and Brad for taking the time to tell us all about direct inline pumping systems and how that technology made a difference in Sherman, New York. Also, massive thanks to Industrial Flow Solutions for sponsoring this episode. If you're listening to the podcast and would like to watch it instead, hop on over to the Pumps and Systems YouTube page to see the full video version. That's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and we will see you next time.